What's up everyone? It has taken me so long to film this video and I don't even know why, because I am super excited to share this project with you just in time for Halloween. You might recall a few months ago that I shared a tutorial on how to make fake chenille patches. Through the video, I'm sure I called it chenille the entire time, but I'm self-corrected now. It is called chenille. And to make those projects, we used a bath towel, just a simple bath towel cut up to give that lovely, fluffy kind of college varsity patch effect. And today I'm going to be using that technique for making my Halloween costume. So if you'd like to see the full step-by-step tutorial on how to create or how to digitize for creating the chenille effect, then I will leave a link to that down in the description below. This video is going to be kind of a shorter, more abridged version using the same technique, and I'm going to use it for a Stranger Things themed outfit. I'm going to make the Hellfire patch on a hoodie. For today's project, we will be using the Happy Japan HCU embroidery machine. I'm choosing to use this embroidery machine because it's the biggest of my three. It's got a really big sewing field, so I can make the patch absolutely enormous and stand out. I've already created one prototype patch. If you can see, using the toweling, you can see this kind of like fluffy and stuff. So this is what we're going to be making today, along with a few other accents that come around it with the Hellfire logo. And the first thing I'm going to show you is how I digitized the applique for the chenille effect. So this is my digitizing software. I use a program called Embroidery, and I also purchased the Studio plugin to allow me to manually digitize designs. I found just an image of the Hellfire logo offline, and then I imported that image into Embroidery and essentially just traced around it using the variety of digitizing tools available to me. Regarding the applique portion, which is what this video is about, inside the demon's face, you can see there are 3 red outlines. So each of these is a separate applique object. Inside those red outlines, I will have my toweling material, and anything outside that will be left blank. So to give you the best view of what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be zooming in on one of these objects to show you the layers of my applique, but each object is exactly the same. They've been copied and pasted, so they are directly on top of one another, and the stitches I've used for each layer will be identical. You'll see what I mean now as we zoom in and start examining the digitizing. This applique process is made up of 4 parts. 4 might have been a little bit overkill. I think 3 would have been enough. Just concerned that the toweling was going to poke through my satin stitches, and I didn't want that, so I added in another layer. But each stage of this, the parts of the design are directly copied and pasted on top of one another, so they overlap directly. And I started with a running stitch, which is what you can see here. This is the first layer of the applique embroidered directly onto my garment, and I just use this as an outline to see where I will be placing my applique material. In the digitizing process, I assign each layer of the applique a different color in order to be able to program in stops on my embroidery machine. I need to program in these stops in order to add the towel layer of the applique to the design. So in the digitizing process, I assign the objects random colors, but in reality, they'll all be red. So once that light blue running stitch has finished stitching out, the machine will stop and I will lay a section of toweling material over it, And then these dark blue stitches will stitch out next, and these will be used to tack down the toweling material. To create this sort of loose zigzag effect, which is ideal for pinning down your material, I selected a satin stitch and I lowered the density down to about 12 millimeters to create these gaps in between the stitches. I also then removed the underlay, and this is because I'm stitching layers of stitches over one another. I don't want the design to get too dense and start creating issues like bird nesting. Then I'd be programming in another stop. I would cut out the material, and after that we'd be laying down these green satin stitches, which is what you see on the screen now. This was the extra layer of stitches I said you probably didn't need. I was just being a little bit overcautious because I didn't want my toweling peeking through the satin stitches. Again, I'm using the exact same technique as the dark blue stitches. I selected the satin stitch, only on this one I am increasing the density slightly and making the overall width of the satin stitches a little wider, just so that the needle doesn't fall exactly on the same stitches as the dark blue satin stitches below. As I said, everything is all copied and pasted on top of one another, and I wanted to avoid the needle falling in the same place. This will also help kind of reduce those raw edges around the edge of the design. And then lastly, I'm adding my thick red satin stitch, which is the final part of the applique, the one that kind of finishes off the material and makes it look really neat. To cover any other raw edges of the material that haven't quite been tucked into the other two layers of zigzag stitches, I am increasing the width to be significantly wider than the other stitches, so I've gone up to 3 millimeters wide, and I've also increased the density just to make the overall finish of the satin stitch quite bold and thick. Something I did forget to add earlier is that we will be using a water-soluble topper for part of this design, and I'll show you where I'll be using that now. Now it is time to hoop up the hoodie. I do this by laying it on a flat surface, and then with a measuring tape I mark out where the center of the garment is. I do this twice. I do this quite high up towards the neck, and then I move the measuring tape further down towards like the waist-ish area, maybe a little bit higher than the waist, and then I just mark it up again. This is so I can make sure the area is squared up in my hoop. And to make these marks, I'm just using regular tailor's chalk that just dusts off the garment when you're done. Then I'm sliding a layer of heavyweight tearaway stabilizer inside the garment. For this particular project, I'm only using one layer because I know I'm not going to have a lot of registration issues. But if I was doing a more dense embroidery design, then I would use 2 layers of this heavyweight tearaway. And then I flatten the hoodie down again before inserting the embroidery hoop. The hoop I'm using today is a new little treat I bought myself. It is not of a standard size for the embroidery machine. It is a 16-inch by 14-inch. That may be the other way around. But it's a very big magnetic hoop, and it's great for doing stuff like this because it gives you a huge sewing area, and it's really easy to hoop up a garment over like thick seams and things, and it also doesn't leave as much of a hoop burn. I'm very happy with this purchase. So this is just me cutting out a section of the toweling. You can use any towel you like, but obviously the fluffier the better, so you get the most out of that sort of fake chenille effect. You are also going to want to cut out a piece of material large enough to cover the whole of your applique area. You could do each section individually, and that might save material if you're sort of tight for material, you don't have enough to complete your project.
I just find that if you're using the same material for the whole project, it's easier to do it all in one go. Then we have entered the design onto the embroidery machine, and I'm so sorry that this image is hard to see. On my camera phone it looked fine, but obviously that's not the case. But here I am selecting the colours I'm going to be using for each part of the patch, but also most importantly I am selecting stops. I'm entering stops so that the embroidery machine knows to take a pause before switching to the next colour, so I can add material to the applique design and cut out parts of that material. Then once I've attached the hoodie to the embroidery machine, it's time to start stitching out the design. This is the machine running out that single running stitch to do the outline of where we need to place our applique material, and then once it reaches the end of that colour, the machine stops. Then I lie the applique material onto the hoodie. It covers all of those single stitches. Some people might like to use a spray adhesive in this situation, but I personally don't. I find the weight of the toweling material is sufficient to hold it in place. And this is the machine completing that first lot of zigzag stitches we digitized. When the machine stops, it's time to remove the hoop from the machine and cut out the excess material away from the applique. To get the best and cleanest edge, you're going to want to cut the material as close to that second layer of knockdown stitches as possible. I'd recommend using a very sharp scissors if you don't have access to a specific applique scissors. The scissors I was using was unfortunately very blunt, so this took an age to cut out. I also didn't get the neatest edge either, which doesn't matter too much because I've just made this hoodie for myself. If I was gifting it to somebody, then I would have used a sharper scissors. Cutting the toweling material did create quite a bit of mess, so I just cleaned all of that off the garment with a vacuum cleaner. And then once the embroidery was back on the machine, I spread some water-soluble topping over my towel applique and then started to stitch down the next layer of the applique. The best way to hold your water-soluble topping in place is by using some kind of pin. Once the machine had finished tacking down the water-soluble topping, I cut away the excess. But as I was planning on stitching some fill stitches on top of the toweling, just some kind of details in the face, I left the water-soluble topping intact over the demon's forehead, just to give those stitches a little lift so they don't sink into the toweling. This has a similar effect for when we are stitching out the last layer of our applique. The water-soluble topping helps lift those satin stitches and completely cover the edge of the raw towering material. Or it should have done if I had a pair of sharp scissors and been able to cut the toweling really close to the edge of the first layers of the applique. After stitching out some final features of the design, it was time to remove the hoodie from the hoop, tear away the tearaway backing and peel off the water-soluble stabilizer. You could get this off with a damp rag, but I didn't want to wet the hoodie as I was planning on wearing it, so I could just peel it off and it came away just fine. And any parts that were a little tricky to remove, I just used a damp tissue and dabbed it on the water-soluble stabilizer and it just melted away. And this is the finished piece. I put it on the hoodie, as you can see. It's great, it fills up the whole chest, so it's a really big statement piece. Oh hello! What's the matter? Here we are. Well, Sooty's blocking the hoodie now, but yes, we like the towely effect, don't we, Sooty?
It's really nice to have something that I can wear out and about. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about embroidery, is being able to create clothes and projects that are actually wearable, so I can take them out and show them off. So yeah, I'm really happy with this one. I think doing the chenille effect was a great idea because there are absolutely loads of Hellfire merch out there, and this just makes it stand out a little bit. It's nice and fluffy, it's a bit different. So if you want to try this out, I would love to see how it worked out for you. If you try any of the projects in my videos, actually, I'd love for you to send me a photo of the outcome. That would be amazing. And on that note, I hope you found this video helpful. If you could like this video and subscribe, that would really help my channel grow. And I hope to see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.